Good afternoon. It's Gary with Soccer Pro Software. And today I have the pleasure of having Paige Tons with me from the Mental Game Mentorship. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have a nice conversation about how we get out of that mental game where we're in the negative zone and get into the positive zone to maximize our performance. So Paige, welcome to our webinar today. I'm glad to have you here. And how about if you do me a favor and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got into this field and what you can bring to their favorite athlete maybe.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've been super excited about this opportunity to be in front of your audience and your group and your community to be able to share some of the things that I'm working on and with the girls in the Mental Game Mentorship. I know we had talked about, what are some things that these girls and these athletes, and even boys too, that these athletes are struggling with on the mental side of the game. And a lot of times that is the negative thinking. And it's that I find a lot that these athletes are really hard on themselves. They get down on themselves easily, and then they get into this negative space where they're like negative thoughts, negative emotions, which kind of just like tumbleweed, or a snowball effect. And then all of a sudden they're like, get in this zone, this negative zone for way too long. And they're not playing to the ability that we all know that they can, or they know that they can. And then it's frustrating and more things come after that.
And it's often the good athletes too, isn't it? I mean, it's the people that are high level performers that are most susceptible to getting into this negative environment because they expect more from themselves. They're pushing themselves harder.
Right. Absolutely. And that's like the good and the bad when it comes to being a competitive athlete, right? Like we all want, I know, speaking from my own experiences as an athlete, an elite athlete, a very competitive athlete, is I always wanted more. I always wanted the next thing. Like it was never good enough. Right. And those are really great qualities when it comes to an athlete, because that's what pushes us to get further, but it also can kind of hinder us and keep us from playing at our best because we're putting so much pressure on ourselves instead of allowing ourselves to just go out there and like hit the go button, or like, the Nike slogan, just do it, like just going out there and doing it and having fun and giving it your all and doing the things that you can control so that you can play at that highest level. And I work with a lot of girl athletes who are very elite. And then I also have some that are, still in the rec ball space and playing for fun, and which we should always be playing for fun because that's what allows you to play your best. But yes, it can go from a spectrum of super competitive athletes to ones that maybe don't have as that much of competitive spirit.
So when you get into this, let's say negative speak, can you give us just an example of the typical, let's call it negative speak environment, so that we can kind of get a baseline and all understand, where are these kids coming in? And then give us an idea of what you do then to lift them from that negative speak baseline and elevate them up so that they can be doing better.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the girls that I work with, and myself as an athlete in my own experience, that's why I love doing what I get to do, because I've experienced it myself and I've gone through these things. I've walked in these girls' shoes or these athletes' shoes. And what happens is we just, it's that feeling of not being enough. Like, oh, like I suck at this, or, I feel like I'm not as good as Sally over here, or in like that comparison piece, or, I'm never going to be the, in soccer terms, I'm never going to be like the high scorer on the team. And like these limiting beliefs and these mental blocks and these stories that we start to create for ourselves that instill like self-doubt and fear and just those negative thoughts and emotions and just being frustrated. I just remember, this is going to sound funny, I just remember after, a tough game, or maybe, I did pretty good and I'm just being hard on myself. I just remember like crying in the car ride home sometimes. And I know a lot of the girls that I worked with can relate to that. It's just because it's like you care so much that you let it affect you. So in order to go from that space where we need to move into like feeling good and feeling positive and having a more positive mindset is practicing. I know, crazy, right? Practice.
Right.
Practicing self-talk, practicing positive and productive self-talk. So, and we'll talk about today, I'll keep it really specific. Something I'm really loving with working with my girls is affirmations. And it's just a form of positive self-talk. Some people call them mantras, but they're just these short, impactful, empowering, actionable statements that instill like positive thinking, positive emotions for them. So, for example, some can be like, simply, I am confident, and like reminding yourself, like, I am confident, like I can be confident, or I am capable. I am strong. I work hard. A lot of times I'm really trying to focus on, what kind of work are you putting in? And if you're a hard worker and you're an action taker, then that's going to create confidence for you. So, one of my own mantras or affirmations is that I am an action taker. And for me, that's like huge as an athlete, and even in like school and life after athletics, as well as you continue to take action. And that's what's going to instill that confidence and that positive mindset. So it's practicing. So you have these affirmations, right? And you're like, what do I do with these? So what I have is what I have them do is to practice is I have them writing them down like daily as a routine, and then saying them out loud to themselves, which sounds like funny, like you're talking to yourself, but it's okay. You just get out of your comfort zone. It's good. Saying them out loud makes them real. So writing them down, saying them out loud. I just had a girl, one of my soccer girls that I work with, write them down on a note card and had her tape them to her water bottle, because at practice, when you're hitting that frustration, or you're working on a skill and it is just not happening, and you're having to work through it, and you're starting to get those negative thoughts and emotions, water break, right? And you see that and you're like, oh yes, I remember, like, this is what I want to believe. So it's just like a good little reminder. And that's a way to practice some self-talk in order to start climbing back towards that feel good space, that positive mindset, so that you can play at the highest level and achieve the goals and dreams that these girls are striving for.
So when these kids that you're working with, is it more typical that a kid will reach out and say, look, I am struggling with this? Or is it more where the parents will come to you and say, hey, I recognize these red flags, or I recognize these traits that are happening that didn't used to happen, or maybe my child is now stuck, where she used to be a high performer, now she seems to be unhappy and her performance is lagging. I mean, where are they actually getting this recognition point, this trigger to come and find someone like you to help them through these things?
Absolutely. So it's funny because I work with the girls, but the parents are who I start with. So I get a little bit of both. I will go out to teams and talk to teams and do some introductions about the mental game, and just kind of get them thinking about how the mental game can help them. And then like the wheels start spinning in their head, right? And they're like, oh, like actually, like, so they definitely, the girls do recognize, the athletes do recognize that maybe they are hard on themselves, or they're not enjoying what they're doing because they're putting so much pressure on themselves. So it definitely comes from the athletes, and they have a pretty good understanding of those thoughts and those feelings that they might be having, or those mental blocks or roadblocks that they're coming across. But a lot of times I'm speaking to the parents, and I'm like, this is something I struggled with. I know a lot of other athletes are struggling with this. Is this something like, what is your daughter like struggling with, or what is challenging when it comes to soccer? And oftentimes it's that confidence piece. And they're like, she's like, she's out there, but she just doesn't feel totally confident in herself or afraid to make a mistake. That's a huge one. There's afraid to fail, afraid to make mistakes. And it's showing these girls that failure and mistakes, there's a different perspective. And if you look at them as ways to learn and grow, then it's not so daunting or scary, right? And I think a lot of times with girls, it's just afraid to like look silly or dumb in front of their teammates or peers or even their parents and coaches. So definitely coming from both sides.
What I find with soccer players is that as you get further back on the defensive side, they become more worried about making a single mistake and they panic about it more. So, you got to explain to them that, look, the strikers lose the ball all the time. That's why the scores are only 1 or 2-0 or 1-2 or 2-1, because almost everything they do fails. So then as you move past into the defense, the back line, when they fail, bad things happen. The other team scores. And of course, when the goalie fails to block the shot, I don't really even want to call it a failure. It's just they weren't capable of blocking that shot for whatever reason, right? It can be a great shot. It can be all sorts of reasons why they can't block it, but they seem to take that the hardest and not recognize that, hey, not everything is going to be perfect. So, when you get into that mindset, when you get into the head of a goalie, so to speak, someone who really is, confidence at that position is everything. They have to take that shot that got to the back of the net and just say, well, okay, that's over. So how do you get those people, the goalies or the back line of the defense, how do you get them into that mindset of the striker, where the striker goes, well, I lost the ball again. I just didn't score. Well, yeah, that happens all the time. So how do you get them into that mindset?
Yeah, it's funny that I've never really looked at it that way. And just to let everyone know, my background lays in softball. So soccer, I'm still learning different things in the game, but all sports, there's so much mental work, and it's really, it just like kind of gave me a little bit of a light bulb. But, I think that what we're going with is goalies have a little less opportunity, I guess you could say.
I'm supposed to say goalkeeper.
Oh,
I'm
goalkeeper.
guilty of that. And I set you up for failure because I said goalie. I know I did. But
goalkeepers,
keepers.
Goalkeepers have a little bit less opportunity, and they have less chances to fail, but when they do, it's big, right? It's more impactful. It feels heavier when, compared to a striker who has a lot more opportunities to, kick at goal, but, maybe lose it, but fails more often. So it's a little bit easier to bounce back. So there's two different aspects there. And for a goalkeeper, I think it's just, when that goal is scored, or, you're one-on-one with that striker and you quote unquote lose or fail because the ball gets by you and they score, the other team scores, is like finding different tools and ways to start climbing back to feeling good, because they're not going to feel good, right? That's the overall thing. Like, they're going to feel crappy and you're not going to feel great after that happens. Just like in softball, if you strike out, it does not feel good, right? We're feeling bad. You probably have some negative self-talk, but the main key, I was going to say the main goal, no pun intended. The main goal is to start taking small action, taking small steps towards going back to that positive mindset. And you're not going to go straight from feeling negative and crappy to feeling like chipper and happy, like right away. But it's, going from, okay, well, they scored. And this is something I do with my girls all the time. It's okay. So, what did I not do so well? For example, maybe like I pivoted the wrong way, or I made a gut reaction and it was wrong, or I thought she was going this way, but she made this move, but now I know. And then what did I do well? Because a lot of times they're doing so many great things during the game. So remembering the stuff that they're doing well in the game, whether that's being a good teammate, they're keeping their team pumped up or excited or motivated or communicating. I mean, there could be a million things that they're doing well in that game. So reminding themselves that they're still amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though the other team scored on them. And then the last thing is like, okay, how can I grow and get better right now? Because soccer is quick. It's like,
yes.
You got to be back in it really quickly. So how do I grow and get better from this moment? And that could be like, I don't know, staying in your center a little bit longer before making that decision to go left or right. And I'm kind of making up,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
physical adjustments here, but
right.
You guys get what I'm talking about. But like learning and growing from the failure rather than letting it be a setback and starting to climb back to, okay, so once you go through that, then I'm feeling maybe not so negative and unhappy and frustrated. Maybe I'm just like content. I'm working my way back to feeling positive, and like I'm going to continue to pour into my teammates and do the things that I can control so that they can get back to that A game, right? As fast as they can.
Yep. So when you're working with these girls, are you working with them face to face? Do you work over the phone? Is it a combination, or how are you able to? And it almost sounds like you're doing, I don't want to call it a therapy session, but as you're talking them through, it is kind of a therapy, type of thing. So how do you work with these girls to, again, is it all local?
Yeah. So I started off local and meeting girls in person. And as I grew, I started getting lots of interest from people who weren't local. So I actually do calls kind of like we are right now on this video call. And so we are face to face. It feels like we're kind of together, even though we're not. But it's like real time, live coaching, live mentoring. And yes, it's similar to like the counseling and like the therapy kind of space. But I am more so, I like to call myself like, I'm a life coach for teen athlete girls or, girl athletes. So I'm just kind of guiding them and sharing my own experiences and the mental training tools that I have learned through my experiences and some certifications and things like that, that are helping them, shift and change their mindsets, become more confident. I always say my mental game mentorship is all about becoming the best version of them. A lot of times like parents will go back and be like, oh, I'm signing you up for this. And the girls are like, oh, well, is there something wrong with me? And I always tell the girls, like, there's nothing wrong with you. We don't have to fix anything about you. You're perfectly fine just the way that you are. It's just leveling up in life. It's becoming the best version of yourself. It's helping them become confident. Sometimes girls just need someone to give them permission to be proud of themselves or be confident in themselves. And I get to be that person, which is pretty cool.
It's similar to what we do with, with our software. I always say there's three aspects or three corners of the development triangle for these soccer players. And one is the technical skills. The other is field play and strategy. And the third part is going to be soccer IQ. And anything we can do to increase their mental game, whether it's through showing them video so that they can do coaching analysis and watching themselves play, or whether it's what you're doing with the mental side of the game, you have to treat the mind like you train the body. And if you just ignore the mind, you would not be developing the complete player. So, when I look at a lot of development, we focus on one aspect of it. And then we forget that, well, look, you still need to do the technical side. You still need to do the mental side. And if you're not doing all three of those, you're only doing part of your development for that athlete. So that's, I guess, why I like talking to people like you on this topic, because I really believe that the mental side is critical to developing really great players. And you brought up a good point, though, with the parents. So you always hear about the car ride home, and there's countless articles written about it, and horror stories as well as glory stories. But what would be, if you were just to pick out one or two things that you could give as advice to parents as they drive their child home after a victory or after a loss? What would be the biggest impactful things?
I've got two things that come to mind, two easy tips that they can put into place. And we'll start with one. I'm like trying to decide which one I want to tell them first. One would be starting to just ask the girls or ask your daughter, what did you learn today? Or like, how did you get better today? Or what did you learn from that, mistake or that failure or that loss today? Like, what was something that you learned, so that you're showing them it's not the end of the world if it's a failure. And like, that's not the important piece. The important piece is that you're getting better no matter what. So I think that's a huge piece that parents can start asking their kids and making them make your daughter or your athlete think about it rather than just telling them what to do. Because I just remember all the time my dad would be like, well, why would you swing at that pitch right over your head? I'm like, I don't know. I just did it.
Yeah.
So, instead of like, telling them or yelling at them or whatever it is, just asking them and making them think about, okay, well, this is what I learned. And then you can follow up with the question of, well, how do you get better at that? And instill like that, they have to take action after something or a failure or a mistake or whatever it is. Take action and start taking responsibility of, okay, I need to be more intentional at practice during this with this kind of skill so that I can get better the next time. And it's all about that hard work, and that's all growth mindset work. So that would be my first thing. My second thing is creating boundaries as a parent, and the athletes can use this too. And I always say, I wish that I would have just had a conversation with my dad or my, coach or whoever it is that, after a long day of games or a game, like, let's wait to talk about whatever sport it is that I played until like 24 hours or maybe after dinner, or, you can create whatever time frame you need, but at least you're giving yourself time and space to kind of soak it in and reflect yourself. And then, but I always say it to the girls, you gotta let the parents talk about it because they're going to keep bugging you no matter what. But at least you guys are both in a better mindset and a better space, a better energy to actually have a productive conversation about it. So those are two things: boundaries and just asking questions instead of like telling or sharing.
Yeah. Well, let's face it, as a parent, and I've been a parent of an athlete too, you tend to get enthusiastic about the sport, right? It's not like you're trying to be malicious, but your enthusiasm sometimes can be taken incorrectly. So it's better to check it. Right? Better to check that back. But it can be hard, because we get excited. I mean, the adrenaline of a parent on the sideline is pretty high. Okay, I'm going to pull this back into soccer program. It's also one of the reasons I always tell people, it's like, you know what, ever since I've done all this video analysis of so many youth games, I tend to speak less and less and less at the game the more I did. And to the point now where I almost say zero, nothing, because of the excitement of the game, my eyes deceive me all the time. So what I think I see, I didn't see. And what I think happened didn't happen. And then when you go back and watch it on video, you're like, oh, yeah. So, like ref calls, like, oh, geez, you hear everyone moaning. And then I go back and I'll watch it. And I'm like, no, that was the right call. That was the right one again.
You're just so emotionally involved.
Yes. So, but that's it. Coaching, parents, we all get so emotionally involved that we do have to have that mindset of like, okay, check it, because for one, we're on an emotion at this point, an emotional high, or maybe low, whatever the case might be. But we're also probably wrong, at that point in time. So step back and like you say, reflect a little bit, both on the parent side and the athlete side, and then come back to it later, and again, I'll just pick on myself. The times that I think I've screwed up are the times that I've said things too soon. That's I've never regretted waiting.
Yeah. Letting it set in a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually just got off the phone with a soccer coach this morning, and he was telling me he's set a rule with his parents, which and it's a boundary. Set a boundary, not a rule. Set a boundary that, you know, I don't want any text or calls from any of the parents until like 24 hours after we stop playing, because you know, we're all high emotion. We're all invested in our kids. I'm invested in the team. I love coaching these girls, but the emotions run high and wild. And it's just good to kind of wait it out and process and think through some things before having conversation about whatever is good or bad kind of thing. So he's I liked that boundary. I was like, that's pretty cool that you've set that for your parents, because, you know, it's easy for a parent to text a coach and be like, well, why isn't she playing, or whatever it is, or this happened or that happened. And for that coach to be like, or just, and they'll get upset. He said that sometimes they'll get upset because he doesn't answer. He's like, well, I didn't answer because if I would have answered in that moment, I would have said something I would have regretted. So I wait to respond and have a clear mind and clear head. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you know, taking that a step further, I recommend coaches should reply with, well, why don't you show me what part of the video you are referring to in this? You know, and get them to force them back into it and say, well, look, watch the video. Show me what part, you know, now that you've been out of the game. And again, the same thing, watch it, see what actually happened, you know, step back yourself, and instead of being emotionally charged, be a little objective, look at the whole field that you'll see in the video. And then, you know, then let's discuss that part. Let's use that as a basis of reference and say, hey, look, you know, my daughter is doing this or doing that. Why is she getting more playtime? Well, watch the video. You know, let's step back and do something from a basis of reference that we can both objectively look at and say, okay, well, yeah, she's falling behind, or that other girl's playing a lot because look how good she's doing. You know, just look how good she's doing. So I don't know, that's my bias, right?
Yeah, no,
Push it another step higher.
Yeah.
And especially those rough calls, you know, refs do make mistakes. They're still human.
They're not perfect either.
But they're a lot better than most people give them credit for. A lot better.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
anyhow, I'm off on a little bit of a tangent. So okay. So we talked about, you know, something the kids can do, something the parents can do. Is there anything, you know, you talked about the water bottle. Are there any other tips that you can give a youth athlete that you see that kind of runs over and over and over again? Is there some tip that you can just pass out in this webinar and talk about, and give out and say, hey, look, if you can just get your athlete to do this, this will be a step in the proper direction and help them.
I got two quick things. So a lot of them have one of these, right? So what I have a lot of my girls do, that we get a little bit creative with our practicing our self-talk, is I'm pretty sure all of them can figure out how to create some sort of wallpaper background for their phone, right? So I have them creating wallpapers or backgrounds for and writing down their affirmations and their positive self-talk, just like the water bottle, but now it's on their phone. And every time they pick up their phone, they're seeing what they're trying to instill in themselves. So that's an awesome way to practice self-talk and keep it forefront. And then the other piece too is just setting a reminder or setting an alarm in the morning. I like typically in the morning to just work on this routine of writing down, you know, give yourself a reminder on your phone that's like, oh, do your mental game routine, which is for my girls a few more things, but most importantly, that self-talk practice of writing down your affirmations, your mantras, and then saying them out loud and getting into a routine of doing that daily. Some other things that we have in that routine is like visualization meditation.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Because you said something I think is really important. You said they have to say them out loud, right? Versus just thinking them. Why is that?
I really think that saying them out loud just makes them real, and you're actually physically having to speak them into your own life because no one else can say them for you. So whenever I'm working with the girls on like a call or a group call, when we practice this, I actually am like going around and I have them say them out loud because first of all, they just don't like doing it and it gets them out of their comfort zone. Most of them. Some girls love it. They do it all day. My little confident, what do you call them? Spark plugs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that saying them out loud just gives them realness and gives them like truth in life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, I kind of interrupted there. But I thought it was a pretty good point you were making.
Yeah, no, I just setting that timer or reminder or an alarm to actually do the mental work because it's easy to forget.
Oh, so you have like a recurring daily alarm that goes off on your phone and it says, "Hey, your affirmation time."
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's just creating habits, especially when it's not a habit yet. It's just a reminder.
Right. So instead of being in that mode of, I know I need to do this, boom, it comes up and it's like, okay, now do it.
Yeah,
right, now's
absolutely.
the time.
Yep, keeps them accountable.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So if someone wants to get a hold of you, if they have a daughter, teammate, friend, if they have a whole team, whatever, how do they get a hold of you if they want to take advantage of what you can help them with?
Absolutely. So I would say the best place to go is my website, which is my name, Paige, Paige, Tons, TON as in Nichols, Z as in zebra.com. And they will be able to find how to contact me there. There's also, there's multiple places where you can fill out the application to start mentorship with me. What that application will do is just kind of gives me some more information about you guys. And then we'll set up an initial call and just kind of, for me to get to know their daughter a little bit better, what the struggles are, what the challenges are, so that I can see if it's a really good fit. And then
so it's like a free consultation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Free initial consultation.
A free first call, free consultation, so that they can learn more about the mentorship and get like insight from me right on that call.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's the best place to go. I have lots of information on there, and I also have a lot of freebies on there, so some downloads that you can use right away and check out. These are things that I work with my girls all the time. Another great place to just interact and learn is my social media. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram pretty frequently, just sharing value, sharing experience, sharing what the girls breakthroughs, challenges, all the things. So that's a really great place to tap into.
And they can just link through your website into those social media accounts, or is it still Paige Tons?
Yes, they're all Paige Tons, but through my website, you can find my social media as well.
Okay, so basically go to Instagram and just look for just search Paige Tons or two. All right, fantastic.
Luckily, my name, I'm like the only Paige Tons, so makes it really easy for me.
yeah, that makes it a lot easier. Okay,
yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come out today and spend a little bit of quality time with us and explain how this works. And again, if you want to get a hold of Paige, it's at paigetonz.com, PAIGETONZ.com, right?
Yep, correct.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, you have a great weekend. And
thank you.
Again, thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I always love getting to talk about the mental game and different sports and aspects and get real into it.
All righty. Well, bye, Paige. Thanks again.
All right. Bye.